Have you ever felt that a relationship in your life is draining your peace, confidence, and sense of self-worth? In today's video, we're going to discuss 9 clear signs that it might be time to cut ties, even if it's with a close friend or family member. Think about it. Is there someone in your life who constantly makes you feel guilty, judged, or as though your value is only based on pleasing them? As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Understanding this is the key to finding the inner strength to take action. Creating distance isn't selfish, it's a necessary step to protect your peace and self-respect. This video will help you recognize dangerous red flags and provide powerful tools to confront them without guilt or hesitation. Be sure to watch until the end, as I'll reveal the most subtle yet common sign, one that many of us overlook, and show you how to free yourself from it forever. Before we dive in, if you find value in these insights, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any essential content that strengthens your spirit and enriches your relationships. Now let's begin the journey to reclaim the freedom and respect you truly deserve. 1. Avoid people who never spend money. Have you ever encountered someone whose first words to you revolve around not having money? It's easy to sympathize with those truly struggling, but oddly, these individuals often lead comfortable lives, indulging in personal pleasures, trips, or hobbies. Yet, when it comes to you, they suddenly bring up financial excuses to avoid responsibilities or obligations. This isn't about being poor, it's about calculated behavior. If you've been in a situation like this, take a moment to reflect. This is not a balanced or genuine relationship. I once had a friend like this. Every time we planned something, he always claimed he didn't have enough money. But I noticed he had no hesitation when it came to spending on personal luxuries or impressing others. One day, when he declined a trip we had planned, I realized that the problem wasn't his financial situation, it was his lack of value for my presence. That moment made me understand that such relationships can't endure because they aren't built on fairness or genuine care. In any relationship, whether it's with friends, family, or a partner, mutual sharing and support are essential. If you feel like you're always the one giving, while the other person just takes advantage without reciprocating, the relationship has become unbalanced and burdensome. Remember, healthy relationships are based on equality, respect, and mutual care. If someone views you only as a resource, don't hesitate to set boundaries or even walk away. You deserve relationships that bring joy, empathy, and true value. 2. Avoid people who constantly argue and take sides. Have you ever felt like every conversation with someone turns into a battle? That's what happens when you're dealing with individuals who constantly argue. These people tend to blow minor issues out of proportion and drag you into their conflicts, forcing you to pick sides. They not only exhaust their own lives, but also drain the peace from your relationship. I have a friend like this. On the surface, he seemed confident, but whenever there was a difference of opinion, he would immediately escalate it into a heated argument. One time, during a casual gathering with friends, we were discussing plans for a trip, and a small disagreement arose. He pulled me into the argument, insisting I back him up in front of everyone. That moment changed our friendship forever. I realized that if someone frequently stirs up conflicts and pressures others to take their side, maintaining a balanced and healthy relationship with them becomes impossible. Arguing is not a sign of intelligence or strength. It reflects a lack of emotional control and insecurity. People who argue constantly not only harm their relationships, but miss opportunities for personal growth. A wise person doesn't need to win every debate. Instead, they prioritize peace, understanding, and resolving issues calmly. If you find yourself caught in a pattern of frequent arguments or being pulled into unnecessary conflicts, take a moment to reflect. Cultivating calmness doesn't just protect your relationships, it also safeguards your inner peace. In life, harmonious connections, and a tranquil mind are the treasures worth cherishing. Avoid people who downplay others' worries. In life, we all carry our own personal struggles, and no two burdens are identical. Our worries, joys, and sorrows hold a unique weight that can't be measured on any universal scale. One of the hardest things to experience is when we open up about our challenges, only to be met with people who belittle our concerns while exaggerating their own. This isn't just disrespectful, it's a behavior that erodes trust and weakens the foundation of any relationship. I remember a time when I confided in a longtime friend about the difficulties of balancing work and caring for my aging parents. Instead of offering empathy or understanding, he brushed off my concerns and immediately shifted the focus to his own work pressures, as though my struggles didn't even matter. That moment wasn't just disappointing, it was deeply hurtful. It made me realize that true relationships can only grow when both parties value and listen to each other's struggles, treating them with the same importance they would want for their own. Respect isn't about grand gestures. It often shows up in the smallest actions, like saying thank you when someone helps or offering a sincere apology when you've caused pain. These words, when spoken from the heart, aren't just politeness. They're the foundation of meaningful relationships. It's essential to distance yourself from people who lack gratitude or who cannot empathize with your struggles. Someone who rejoices in the misfortune of others lacks compassion, and this kind of disrespect isn't just toxic, it reveals a frightening indifference. While we can't control others' behavior, we can control who we allow into our lives. Build relationships based on respect, gratitude, and genuine care. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your joys, console you in your sorrow, and truly want the best for you. Never take pleasure in someone else's suffering. It harms them and diminishes your own humanity. By living with compassion, you won't only nurture beautiful relationships, you'll create a life that's rich with meaning and worth cherishing. Avoid anyone who forces their religious or political beliefs on you. We are all unique, and this diversity is what makes human relationships so beautiful. True connection doesn't lie in forcing our beliefs on others, but in recognizing and appreciating our differences and building shared values from them. However, there are people who relentlessly try to impose their views on others, whether it's about religion or politics. This behavior doesn't just wear us out, it can also create deep divides in relationships. I remember a close friend who always tried to convince me that his way of thinking was the only right one. He insisted that I needed to change my beliefs to match his. At first, I engaged in debates with him, defending my own perspective. But after each conversation, I felt emotionally drained. Over time, I realized that these discussions weren't about understanding each other. They were simply about winning arguments, and they only pushed us further apart. Pointless arguments rarely lead to resolution. When both sides are determined to defend their egos, the conversation turns into a battle where both parties lose. Even if you win an argument, the satisfaction is short-lived and often comes at the expense of someone else's pride. The real cost isn't just the loss of respect, but the lasting resentment and emotional wounds that can result. Wise individuals never argue simply to be right. Instead, they listen, empathize, and know when to step back. True victory in a relationship isn't about proving the other person wrong. It's about letting go of the need to always be right in order to create harmony and understanding. When you release the urge to defend your ego, you'll discover that your relationships grow stronger and you experience a sense of inner peace that no argument can ever provide. If you've made it this far, leave a comment with the word peacefulness so I can recognize you. Let's keep learning, growing, and building better lives together. If being around a friend causes you distress, consider distancing yourself from them. Have you ever noticed that someone who once brought you joy and laughter now feels distant, it doesn't necessarily mean you've done something wrong or that they've become a bad person. It simply means that life has taken both of you in different directions. Over time, our interests, values, and perspectives naturally changed. Relationships that once felt perfectly in sync can start to feel off-key. I remember a colleague telling me about a childhood friend he had spent countless unforgettable moments with, watching movies, playing sports, and dreaming about their futures together. But as life went on, their paths diverged. One of them moved to a new city to build a career and family, while the other stayed in their hometown, living a simpler life. The few times they managed to reconnect didn't feel the same anymore. Their conversations felt forced, filled with polite exchanges, but lacking the comfort of familiarity. My colleague admitted that, at first, he tried hard to hold on to the friendship, but the more he tried, the more he realized that they had grown too far apart to reconnect the way they once had. Instead of clinging to what was, he chose to step back, not because he didn't care for his friend, but because he understood that sometimes letting go is the best way to honor the changes they both had gone through. Relationships are like a dance. For them to work, both people need to move in harmony. When the rhythm no longer matches, it can feel awkward and draining. Rather than blaming yourself or the other person, sometimes the wisest decision is to accept that change is a part of life. It doesn't mean you erase someone from your life, but that you create space for both of you to grow in your own ways. A gentle parting can often be healthier than forcing a connection that no longer fits. Life and relationships are constantly changing, but the key is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Cherish the memories you've made, but don't be afraid to let the relationship become a treasured part of your past. Sometimes, letting go is not just about respecting the other person. It's also about respecting yourself. Avoid people who continuously complain about their lives. Have you ever felt like an emotional dumping ground? That feeling when someone constantly comes to you, not to share a genuine concern or seek comfort, but to unload their frustrations, sadness, and endless complaints? We all need someone to lean on during tough times, but sharing should come from a place of empathy, not selfishness. A person who repeatedly complains without caring about your feelings isn't looking for companionship. They're simply using you as a receptacle for their negativity. This behavior doesn't just drain you, it can pull you into their vortex of emotions that aren't yours to carry. I remember a former colleague named Sarah, who I was once very close to. During a time when my mother was critically ill and I was struggling to balance work and caregiving, I desperately needed emotional support. But instead of offering comfort, Sarah came to me every day to vent about her own trivial issues. I hate my job, my boss is awful, my husband never helps. Despite being exhausted and emotionally drained, she never asked how I was doing. When I tried to talk about my own struggles, especially with my mother's health, she quickly shifted the conversation back to her problems. Every conversation with Sarah felt like being caught in an emotional whirlwind, leaving me drained and, at times, guilty for not being able to offer more support. One day, after my mother had just undergone major surgery, Sarah called to complain that I hadn't responded to her messages quickly enough. That was the moment I realized I needed to set boundaries. I told her, "Sarah, I can't keep doing this. I have too much on my plate right now, and I need the people around me to understand and share the load." Her response was a long silence, followed by a growing distance between us. It was painful, but I knew it was the right decision to protect my well-being. Not all sadness deserves to be shared, and no one is obligated to be another person's emotional dumping ground. If someone isn't truly seeking resolution, but just wants to vent endlessly, don't allow yourself to be the receptacle for their misery. Learn to listen selectively, set boundaries, and prioritize your time for those who genuinely care about your feelings. Listening isn't just about hearing, it's about observing. and empathizing. Use both your ears and your heart to cultivate meaningful relationships where both sides feel valued and understood. And above all, don't expect too much from others. The world isn't always kind, but you can always choose to be kind to yourself. 7. Avoid people who take promises lightly or break them easily. Have you ever waited for someone who never showed up, only to get a weak excuse, or worse, no explanation at all? How does it feel to realize you're not important in someone else's life? A promise is more than just words. It's a commitment, a sign of respect and trust. But the most hurtful thing is when someone not only breaks their promises, but also forgets they ever made one. This doesn't just destroy trust, it makes you feel like an afterthought in their life. I remember sitting at my favorite coffee shop waiting for a friend, just as we had planned. At first I thought she might be running late, maybe due to traffic or something urgent, but after an hour I received a message saying, "I totally forgot we had plans today. Sorry." This wasn't the first time it had happened, and I realized that staying in this situation was only hurting me. She didn't mean to hurt me, but her disregard for our plans and failure to honor her word spoke volumes. When a relationship starts to feel like an emotional burden, when respect and commitment are no longer the foundation, it's time to seriously reconsider it. Remember, respecting yourself sometimes means letting go of relationships that no longer add value. A healthy relationship isn't based on empty promises or indifference. Trust your feelings. You deserve relationships where both sides value each other. And if someone can't offer that, don't hesitate to walk away. Every time you say no to those who don't respect you, you're making room for better people in your life. Always remember, you deserve not only love, but respect in both words and actions. 8. Avoid people who keep talking about the same worries. Have you ever noticed that when someone shares their worries with you, they're not really looking for a solution, but just a temporary comfort? There's nothing wrong with needing empathy or a shoulder to lean on, but if you're constantly dealing with someone who brings up the same issues over and over without ever trying to make a change, or worse, ignores your advice in favor of just hearing what they want, it's a sign that this relationship may not be helping either of you grow. I once had a colleague who would always come to me to complain about work. At first, I thought she just needed someone to talk to, so I listened and even offered advice to help her improve her situation. But time after time, she ignored my suggestions and returned to the same complaints. Eventually, I realized that she wasn't interested in solving her problems. She just wanted validation for her worries. One day I decided to speak up. I told her, "I really value our relationship, but I feel like we're just going in circles. If you really want to improve things, I'm here to help, but it has to start with you." She didn't take it well, but I knew I had made the right decision. Listening is a kind and generous act, but when it doesn't lead to progress, it can drain both sides. If you're a true friend, be brave enough to offer honest advice, even when it's hard to hear. Real, lasting friendships aren't built on shallow sympathy. They're built on mutual support, helping each other grow. 9. Avoid people who boast excessively. Have you ever met someone who constantly brings the conversation back to their past accomplishments? They talk about their successes as if those moments were the only important parts of their lives. At first, you might find it interesting or even admire their achievements, but after a while, you realize that these stories are just a cover-up for their lack of fulfillment in the present. This not only makes the relationship feel shallow, but it also highlights their struggle to move forward in life. I once knew someone who would never stop talking about the prestigious awards he won years ago. Every time we talked, he'd recount every detail of his past triumphs. But when it came to discussing his current life, he'd deflect or avoid the topic entirely. It was clear he was clinging to his past achievements as his only source of self-worth. Sadly, instead of earning admiration, he ended up pushing people away. We need to understand that boasting about past glories doesn't increase our value in others' eyes. In fact, it can make people feel disconnected or undervalued. True confidence and happiness come from living in the present, not from flaunting past successes. Let your current life speak for itself. Humility not only makes you more likable, but it also strengthens your relationships with authenticity and mutual respect. 10. People who continuously disrespect your boundaries. Have you ever set a clear boundary only for someone to repeatedly ignore it? Whether it's asking for favors you've already said no to, or pushing you into uncomfortable situations, someone who disrespects your boundaries shows a lack of regard for your needs and feelings. Boundaries are vital for your emotional well-being and self-respect. When someone keeps crossing them, it's not just about a disagreement or misunderstanding. It's a sign of disrespect. The more you let these actions slide, the more they'll take advantage of your kindness. I once had a friend who constantly asked me for favors, even when I was already overwhelmed with my own commitments. Despite me setting clear boundaries and saying I couldn't help at the time, she kept pushing, making me feel guilty for saying no. After a while, I realized that her disregard for my personal space and limits wasn't just inconsiderate, it was harmful. It's essential to protect your peace and assert your boundaries. If someone refuses to respect them, even after you've clearly communicated them, it's a sign that this relationship is no longer healthy for you. Cutting ties may be necessary to preserve your own mental and emotional health. You deserve people who will respect and support your limits. 11. People who drain your energy without giving anything back. Have you ever been around someone who constantly takes from you, whether it's your time, energy, or emotional resources, but never gives anything in return? Over time, these people can leave you feeling drained and exhausted while never showing any appreciation or effort to balance the relationship. I once had a close friend who always came to me for emotional support. At first, I didn't mind listening to her struggles and offering advice, but as time went on, I realized it was always one-sided. She never asked how I was doing, never showed interest in my well-being, and rarely offered any support when I needed it. I started feeling like I was her emotional crutch, but she wasn't there for me in return. Healthy relationships are based on give and take. If someone consistently takes from you without offering anything in return, they're draining your energy and preventing you from focusing on your own growth and happiness. It's okay to walk away from such relationships. Remember, you deserve to be surrounded by people who bring balance, positivity, and mutual support into your life. As the saying goes, silence is golden. Those who understand this are often the most deeply valued individuals. I'd love to hear about your own journey, successes, and challenges. Please hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment below to share your story. Your engagement helps this community grow toward wisdom, turning every challenge into an opportunity. I'll leave 2 more videos here so you can continue learning and growing on your personal development journey. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.